The message came through at 9:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. I was reviewing quarterly reports for my property portfolio when my phone lit up with the family group chat notification. Aunt Patricia's message sat there in bold letters, pinned to the top by my cousin Derek. Family Christmas will be at Riverside Estates this year. Formal attire. Adults only. Sophia, this means you're not invited. We need people who won't embarrass us in front of the right crowd. 12 responses came within minutes. Uncle James with a thumbs up. My mother with, finally, a classy Christmas. Cousin Derek with 3 laughing emojis. Sister Rebecca, thank God. She'd probably show up in jeans. I set my phone down carefully next to my coffee. The ceramic mug was warm against my palm. Outside my office window, downtown stretched out 23 floors below. The same view I'd had for 6 years as CEO of Martinez Property Group. The same view I'd fought for while my family called me, confused about my place in life. For 15 years I'd been the family disappointment. The one who wasted her finance degree on playing with buildings, instead of marrying well like Rebecca. The one who wore inappropriate blazers to family dinners instead of the floral dresses my mother preferred. The one who talked about boring business things, instead of discussing whose children were getting into which private schools. My phone buzzed again. Aunt Patricia in the group chat. We've already paid the $8,500 deposit. Non-refundable. This will be the Christmas the Martinez family deserves. I picked up my office phone. My assistant answered on the first ring. Connect me with James Chin at Riverside Estates. Your property manager? Of course, Ms. Martinez. The irony wasn't lost on me. Riverside Estates, the crown jewel of my portfolio. I'd purchased it 4 years ago when the previous owners defaulted on their commercial loan. 42 acres of manicured grounds, a 20,000 square foot main building, capacity for 500 guests. Market value, $4.2 million. I'd paid $2.8 million cash and spent another $600,000 on renovations. My family had no idea. James picked up. Sophia. I saw the booking request from a Patricia Martinez come through yesterday. I was going to call you. Same last name, I thought maybe family. It is family. Pull up the reservation details. The sound of keyboard clicking came through the line. December 25th, 2 p.m. to 9 p.m. 50 guests. Premium bar package, full catering from Lawrence, white glove service. Total contract value, $32,000. They've paid the deposit, balance due December 1st. I looked at the group chat again. My cousin Melissa had just posted. So glad we don't have to pretend to be nice to Sophia this year. She never fit in anyway. There's a psychological concept called the spotlight effect. The tendency to overestimate how much others notice about us. My family had spent 15 years treating me like I was under a spotlight of failure. Every business decision I made was risky. Every property I acquired was another waste of money. Every success I achieved was luck, or the wrong kind of success. What they never noticed was that I'd stopped seeking their spotlight entirely. I'd built my own stage. James, I need you to send an automated cancellation notice. Standard template. Property owner reserves the right to refuse service. Cite the clause about events that exclude property ownership from attendance. You want me to cancel your aunt's Christmas? I want you to enforce the policy I established when I bought this property. No events that exclude me from my own venue. It's in the standard contract, Section 7, Paragraph 3. They signed it. Silence on the other end. Then, you know what? I remember adding that clause when you bought the place. You said it was for situations exactly like this. Pull the trigger. Done. Automated email goes out in 60 seconds. Deposit is forfeit per cancellation terms. Initiated by violation of attendance policy. I'll mark the date as unavailable. I thanked him and hung up. My coffee had gone cold. I didn't drink it. The thing about family dynamics is they're built on a foundation of assumed power structures. For 15 years my family's structure had been simple. They were the successful ones who'd married doctors and lawyers and produced grandchildren. I was the oddball who'd chosen career over family, which in their eyes made me both pitiable and contemptible. But power structures only work when both parties accept them. 53 seconds after I hung up with James, my phone exploded. Aunt Patricia called first. I let it go to voicemail. Then Uncle James. Voicemail. My mother called 3 times in 90 seconds. All voicemail. The group chat became a war zone of confusion and rage. Patricia. My reservation was cancelled. Deposit gone. This is unacceptable. Derek. Can you rebook somewhere else? Patricia. Every venue is booked for Christmas. I called 4 places already. Mother. This is a disaster. Who cancels Christmas? Rebecca. Maybe we can do it at someone's house? Patricia. I invited the Hendersons, the Wainwrights, and Charles Prescott from the yacht club. I can't have them at someone's house. I opened my laptop and pulled up the reservation system. James had already updated the notes. Cancellation, owner exclusion clause violated. Guest attempted to book venue while specifically excluding property owner from event. Deposit forfeited, $8,500. Date blocked for personal use. My phone rang again. This time a number I didn't recognize. I answered. Ms. Martinez? A woman's voice, professional but warm. This is Caroline Hendricks from Riverside Estates. I know who you are, Caroline. You're the events coordinator James hired last year. Oh, yes. I'm so sorry to bother you, but there's a woman here at the venue. A Patricia Martinez? She's demanding to speak with management about a cancellation. She's quite upset. She says she's your aunt and that this is all a misunderstanding. Through the phone, I could hear Aunt Patricia's voice in the background. I demand to speak to whoever owns this place. This is unacceptable. Do you know who we are? Put her on speaker, Caroline. And please record this for liability purposes. You're on speaker, Ms. Martinez. Who is this? Aunt Patricia's voice filled my office. I'm trying to plan a family Christmas, and your incompetent staff canceled my reservation. This is Sophia Martinez. I own Riverside Estates. I'm also the family member you specifically excluded from the family Christmas you're planning at my venue. The silence that followed was so complete I could hear someone's breathing. What? Aunt Patricia's voice had dropped to barely a whisper. I purchased Riverside Estates in October 2020 for $2.8 million. I've owned it for 4 years. You booked my property for a family event and specifically excluded me from attending. Section 7, Paragraph 3 of your contract states that any event that excludes the property owner from attendance will result in immediate cancellation with forfeiture of all deposits. You signed that contract. You own this place? I own 7 commercial properties in this county. Riverside Estates is one of them. The others include the office building where Derek works, the shopping plaza where Rebecca gets her hair done, and the apartment complex where Uncle James lives. I have a portfolio value of $22 million. I didn't mention this at family dinners because I was too busy listening to lectures about how I was wasting my life. Caroline's voice came back on. Ms. Martinez, should I proceed with the escorted exit? Yes. And Caroline? Block all future booking attempts from anyone in my immediate family. They can submit written requests to my legal team if they'd like to rent my properties, subject to standard approval and the attendance clause. Understood. Mrs. Martinez, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the property now. The ghost ledger doesn't show up on any balance sheet, but every person who's been systematically diminished by their family knows it exists. It's the accounting of emotional debts that can never be collected in dollars. Entry 1. 15 years of Christmas dinners where my business successes were met with, "That's nice, dear," while Derek's promotion to regional sales manager got champagne toasts. Cost. Self-worth unquantifiable. Entry 2. The Thanksgiving when I mentioned purchasing my 3rd property and my mother said, "When are you going to focus on finding a husband instead of these silly investments?" Cost. The belief that my achievements mattered to the people who raised me. Entry 3. Every wedding, every baby shower, every family gathering where I was introduced as Sophia, she's in real estate with the same tone others might say, Sophia, she collects bottle caps. Cost. Dignity 73 separate occasions. Entry 4. The family reunion where Aunt Patricia told the Prescotts, the same people she wanted at Christmas, that I was still trying to figure out what to do with her life. I was 34. I just closed a $1.9 million deal. Cost. Credibility with people whose opinions I didn't even want. The ledger's balance was simple. They owed me recognition I'd never demanded. Payment came due the moment they needed something I owned. My mother called again. This time I answered. Sophia, what have you done? I enforced a contract. Patricia is hysterical. She's telling everyone you humiliated her. She drove to that venue thinking she could fix this in person, and they escorted her out. She humiliated herself by booking my property for an event I wasn't invited to. Your property? Since when do you own? Since 2020, Mom. I've owned it for 4 years. Before that, I owned 6 other commercial properties. I have 17 residential rental units. I employ 43 people across my holdings. I generate $2.1 million in annual revenue. And none of you noticed because you were too busy telling me I was wasting my potential. Silence. I don't understand. I know you don't. That's the problem. I hung up before she could respond. The procedural justice system moves slowly, but it moves with precision. That's what makes it satisfying. Each step documented, each consequence inevitable, each appeal denied not through cruelty but through the simple application of rules everyone agreed to follow. Step 1. Contract enforcement. Completed at 10:32 a.m. Deposit forfeited, $8,500. Step 2. Property access restrictions. Completed at 11:15 a.m. All family member names flagged in the booking system. Future rental requests require written application and legal review. Step 3. Documentation distribution. I forwarded the cancellation notice and contract to every family member in the group chat at 11:47 a.m. Subject line: regarding Christmas plans. Step 4. Attorney consultation. At 2 p.m. I met with my corporate counsel. We reviewed potential defamation concerns if family members started spreading false information about my business practices. Standard cease and desist letters were prepared, ready to send if necessary. Step 5. Portfolio review. I had my property managers pull reports on every property connection to my family. Derek's office building lease was up for renewal in March. Uncle James's apartment complex was undergoing market rate adjustments. Rebecca's salon was in a plaza where I owned 40% equity. Knowledge is leverage. Step 6. Communication boundaries. I left the family group chat at 4:30 p.m. Before I did, I posted one message. I'm available for genuine conversations about rebuilding family relationships based on mutual respect. I'm not available for dramatics about Christmas venue cancellations. You have my direct number. Step 7. Alternative planning. I called my actual family, the chosen kind. My best friend Maria, who'd celebrated every property closing with me. My mentor Robert, who'd believed in me when banks wouldn't. My assistant Jenny, who'd worked overtime on every deal. I booked Riverside Estates for December 25th under my name. Intimate dinner for 8. The people who'd actually shown up for my life. The group chat continued without me. I know because several people screenshot it and sent it to me. Aunt Patricia was demanding I be more reasonable. Derek called me spiteful. Rebecca suggested I was having a breakdown and needed intervention. My mother posted a long message about family loyalty and forgiveness that conveniently forgot every time they dismissed my accomplishments. But the 3 people who mattered most stayed quiet in the chat. Uncle Richard, Cousin Anna, and my grandmother. They each called me privately. Uncle Richard, I always knew you were doing well. I'm sorry I didn't speak up more. Cousin Anna, I stopped coming to family events 2 years ago. Now I know you understand why. My grandmother, 92 and sharp as ever. Mija, I'm proud of you. Always have been. Can I come to your Christmas dinner? I said yes to all 3. 6 months have passed. Aunt Patricia never rebooked her Christmas. The family gathered at her house instead. 32 people crammed into a space meant for 15. I heard it was chaos. I heard Derek's office lease wasn't renewed. The new tenants pay market rate, $4,200 more per month. I heard my mother asks about me now carefully through Uncle Richard. Whether I'm well. Whether I'd consider coming to Easter. I heard Rebecca tried to book Riverside Estates for her daughter's sweet 16. The request was denied. My Christmas was perfect. 8 people, 5 courses, 4 hours of genuine conversation. Maria gave a toast about chosen family. Robert told stories about my first terrified property showing. Jenny reminded everyone about the time I negotiated a deal while having food poisoning, closing it from a hospital bed. My grandmother held my hand during dessert. You know what's funny? She said. What, abuela? They thought they were inviting the right people to Christmas. The Hendersons, the Wainwrights, all those important names. He squeezed my fingers. But the most successful Martinez was already in the family. They just never bothered to look. The bill for Christmas dinner at my venue. $4,200 paid to myself. The look on Aunt Patricia's face when Caroline escorted her out. Priceless. The knowledge that I'd built something they couldn't take away. Worth every ignored achievement, every dismissive comment, every year of being treated like the family failure. I get emails sometimes forwarded from the Riverside Estates booking system. Requests from family members for various events. Weddings, anniversaries, graduations. Each one comes with a note now. Would Sophia be welcome to attend? Some I approve. Uncle Richard's retirement party. Cousin Anna's engagement celebration. My grandmother's 93rd birthday. Some I deny. No explanation needed beyond the attendance clause. And Aunt Patricia? She emails once a month. Always the same subject line. Reconsider. Always the same message. This family feud is getting ridiculous. I never respond. There is no feud. A feud requires two parties fighting. This is simply a correction in the power structure. The one where they assumed control over property they never owned, over a Christmas they couldn't exclude me from, over a narrative about my life they had no right to write. They wanted an elegant Christmas at Riverside Estates. They got a lesson in reading contracts instead. And I got my family dinner exactly where it belonged. At my table in my venue with my people on my terms.
It wasn't snowing yet, but the wind cut through my coat as if November knew something I didn't. I had one hand on Ella's shoulder, the other balancing the casserole dish I'd made from scratch the night before. Jake was 2 steps behind us, carrying the pumpkin pie with both hands like a sacred object. We rang the doorbell. No one answered. After a minute, I let myself in through the back door, same as I had since I was old enough to reach the handle. The kitchen smelled like sage turkey skin and the cinnamon glaze Dad always added to the ham. It should have felt like coming home. But no one looked up. My mother stood at the counter folding cloth napkins into sharp triangles. Her hair was shorter than I remembered, her smile absent. She glanced at the kids, then turned back to her napkins as if they were the only things she could control. My father was by the living room window swirling his bourbon like he was waiting for someone more important to arrive. Ryan, my younger brother, was already half a drinking feet on Dad's recliner arguing loudly about football with Uncle Dean. Same as always. His wife Jenna perched on the armrest beside him, her laugh light and constant like she was trying out for something. I cleared my throat. Happy Thanksgiving. Jake set the pie on the counter with both hands. We brought dessert. No one replied right away. It was Rachel, my sister, 4 years younger and always diplomatic, who finally said, "Hey, Lise. Sorry, we weren't sure if you were still coming." I blinked. "You invited me." Rachel shrugged, smile brittle. "Well, Ryan said maybe you'd changed plans. It's been busy." Ella tugged gently at my sleeve. "Where do we sit, Mommy?" I looked toward the dining room. 12 chairs, napkins folded, name cards handwritten in Jenna's loopy script. 12 plates, 1 long table. I counted again. No kids' table, no high chairs, no folding chairs pulled from the garage like every other year. Just 12. Rachel followed my gaze and cleared her throat. "We figured the kids could eat in the den. There's pizza and a movie. It'll be more fun for them." Jake didn't say anything, but he'd already seen enough. No one asked how we were doing. No one asked how the new apartment was coming along or if I needed help with Ella's school stuff. I wasn't expecting much, but I had expected something. I looked around that room, my childhood home, my parents, my siblings, and for the first time it hit me I had arrived as a guest when they weren't sure they'd invited. Ella's hand stayed in mine. I didn't squeeze back. Not yet. I helped the kids settle in the den. Pizza paper plates, 1 fuzzy blanket for 2 little laps. The fun table, they called it, but no one asked if they wanted to sit there. I stayed a moment longer, smoothing Ella's hair, adjusting Jake's collar. His eyes didn't leave mine. "When are we going home?" he asked, barely above a whisper. "Soon," I said. "Not just yet." Back in the kitchen, the bourbon had flowed a little more freely. My father laughed at something Ryan said. Mom was already opening another bottle of red, not looking my way. I set the casserole down beside a tray of deviled eggs untouched. "I think we're going to head out after dessert," I said into the space between sentences. No one looked up. Then Ryan raised his glass. "Busy mom things, right? Always in a rush." Jenna giggled. "We get it. Single-parent life." She said it like she'd never once needed help from anyone. She said it like I wasn't standing 3 feet away. I straightened my spine. My voice didn't shake, but it landed quiet. "Actually, I need to share something." That got their attention. Jenna's smile froze. Rachel set her wine down. "I'm pulling back," I said, "from everything. The tuition helped the electric bill for Mom's place, the extras." My father's face changed first, just a flicker, but it was there. That slight confusion, like someone had moved his things without asking. "I thought you wanted to," Rachel said soft. "I did." I nodded. "And I still care. But I can't carry everything anymore." Ryan snorted. Since when is splitting a water bill considered carrying anything? I looked at him. He hadn't paid his student loans in 10 years. My parents still covered his car insurance. But I didn't say it. "I'm doing what's best for me and the kids," I said instead. That's all. No one thanked me for what I had done. No one asked why now. My mother finally spoke. "We never asked you to." The silence after that wasn't awkward. It was final. I picked up Ella's sweater from the back of a chair and folded it under my arm. Jake met me at the hallway, pizza crust in hand. "Are we leaving?" I looked down the hall, past the coats, past the photos frames that hadn't changed in a decade. My face wasn't in any of them. "Not yet," I said again. But something had already left. We drove home in near silence. The kids dozed in the back, their heads tilting toward each other, still smelling of buttered crust and cinnamon. The car was warm, but I cracked the window anyway. I needed the cold to stay awake. The apartment was quiet when we stepped in. Too quiet. The kind that used to feel lonely, but tonight it felt like breathing again. Jake dropped his shoes in the hallway, then doubled back to line them up neatly. I used to remind him. Now he reminded himself. Ella climbed into my lap on the sofa without asking, her face pressed into my sweater, sticky from frosting, and something unspoken. "Did we do something wrong?" she mumbled, voice muffled. I didn't answer right away. I smoothed her hair, counted the seconds between her breaths. "No, baby," I said finally. "We just don't always get to decide how others treat us. But we do get to decide what we keep close." She pulled back, looked at me serious. "Do we still love them?" The question didn't come with anger, just the kind of wonder that lives in children too young to understand grown-up disappointments. "I think love can stay," I said, "even if we don't visit as much." Jake had curled into the blanket next to us, quiet eyes open but far away. He hadn't asked for hugs in years, but he rested his head against my arm, and that was enough. We sat like that for a while. No TV, no background noise, just the rhythm of our own stillness. On the coffee table, I noticed the paper Ella had drawn on earlier that week, 3 stick figures holding hands under a crooked sun. She had written all our names in shaky purple marker, Jake, Ella, Mom. No grandparents, no cousins, no one missing, no one extra. I didn't add to it, I didn't correct it. I just reached for a magnet and pinned it on the fridge right where we'd see it every morning. Outside, the wind carried the last leaves across the pavement. Inside, we were exactly where we belonged. The first missed call came on Tuesday. Rachel, then 2 from my mother. 1 from an unknown number. I knew it was Dad. He never saved his own contact. I didn't answer. The voicemails started stacking up like unopened mail. Short ones clipped. No apologies. Just fragments of sentences that didn't know where to land. "Hey, Alyssa, just checking if you got home all right. The kids? Seemed okay. We're going through a bit of a thing with the house, nothing serious. Just, would be good to talk. Your father says hello." By Friday, Jenna had sent me a message through Instagram. Not even a text. "Hey, just a heads up, Ryan's in some trouble. Might be good for the family to meet. Let me know when you can come over." Not "how are you?" Not "we miss you." Just heads up. That night, I stood in the kitchen with my phone face down and the lights dimmed. Jake was asleep on the sofa, a library book falling from his chest. Ella was humming to herself in the bathtub, replaying her favorite song from memory. I leaned against the counter watching the red notification light pulse like a heartbeat. I didn't press play. I didn't need to. They weren't reaching out because they remembered my worth. They were reaching out because something cracked. The next day, Rachel showed up. She didn't call ahead, just knocked holding a paper bag of donuts like we were still in college, like this was still Saturday morning brunch before the world got complicated. She looked tired. Lipstick undone, eyes darting. "Can I come in?" she asked. I stepped aside. She didn't sit right away, just hovered by the counter fiddling with a mug that didn't need washing. "It's Ryan," she said. "He might have, okay? He did something stupid. And now Mom and Dad are, well, not in a great place either." I waited. She glanced at me careful. "They could really use your help sorting this out." There it was. Not "can we talk?" Not "we're sorry." Just the unspoken math of you fix things. But I wasn't holding that job anymore. "I'm glad you came," I said gently. "I really am." Her shoulders lifted hope briefly. "But I don't think I'm the one they should call." Rachel didn't argue, just stared at the mug, then nodded like something had finally settled. Before she left, she looked around the apartment once more. "You really made this place feel like home." I didn't tell her the kids had done most of that work. I didn't hear anything for 6 days. Then the emails started. Not to me, Jake's school, Ella's daycare. Both had emergency contacts listed under my parents. Both flagged for failed payments. Next came a call from my old bank manager. I still had alerts set up from when I handled Dad's mortgage during his surgery years ago. "Just a courtesy heads up," she said. "Your father added someone new to the account last month. There's been activity." Activity. That's how they say someone pulled out $19,000 in 2 weeks. The someone was Ryan. Apparently, he had borrowed against the house, then used Dad's credit line to cover a failed business venture, some crypto-flavored disaster with no paperwork, no plan, just confidence and charm. And now the walls were closing in. Mom texted a full paragraph. Not angry, just scattered. "If you have any bandwidth, we could use help negotiating with the bank. You always had a way with words. They listen to you more than they ever do us. No mention of Thanksgiving. No mention of the casserole I carried like peace. Just, we need you." I stared at the message a long time. The next day, Rachel sent a photo. It was the front porch of the house, paint chipped. A foreclosure notice taped to the door like a scarlet letter. She didn't write a caption. She didn't need to. That night, Jake heard me moving dishes louder than I meant to. He wandered in, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "They're in trouble, huh?" he asked. I hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, they are." He looked down at the floor toes curling against the cold tile. "Are we going to help them?" I knelt beside him, one hand on his back. "We're going to do what's best for us. That's what I promised." He leaned into me, small and warm and trusting. In the past, I would have been halfway across town already. Laptop open crisis plan, typed bank calls on hold. But I stayed right there on the kitchen floor, holding my son and watching the tea kettle steam. They had built a house of glass around Ryan, convinced the sun rose and set in his hands, and now that it cracked, they wanted me to fix it. But I had stopped bringing glue to a place I was never invited to sit. Rachel called again on a Sunday morning, this time earlier than usual. I was folding laundry, the sun barely up. The kids were still asleep. Her voice was flat. No preamble. They might lose the house this week. I paused with one of Jake's shirts in my hand, the one with the faded rocket ship. "What do you want me to do, Rach?" She didn't answer right away. Finally, just, "Come by. Talk to them. Maybe they'll listen if you're there." I almost smiled. Not because it was funny, because it was familiar. She kept talking. "They don't need money. They need help negotiating. Your calm voice. Your logic. My calm voice. My logic." All the things they dismissed as overbearing, cold, too calculating until now. I told her I'd think about it. That evening she showed up. Again, without warning. This time she didn't bring donuts. Just her presence in a folder. Inside statements letters a handwritten note from Mom that looked more like a grocery list than a plea. "I'm just the messenger," she said quickly. "Don't shoot me." "I'm not angry," I said and meant it. She took a breath. "Look, I know it hasn't been fair. I know they've leaned on you more than anyone." I waited. "But they're still family, Liz, and we're in deep. You know how bad it looks if the house goes under. The neighbors talk, the church talks." There it was, the real reason. Not fear of losing shelter, fear of losing face. Rachel looked at me, searching for the old rhythm between us. "You always kept the peace." I folded the folder shut gently. "I'm not angry," I repeated. "But I'm done being useful only when it hurts me." Rachel didn't argue. Not really, but her voice shifted. "So that's it," she said too light. "You're just out." It wasn't said with cruelty, but it wasn't said with care either. "I'm not out," I replied. "I just stopped showing up where I'm unwelcome." She stood there for a moment, shoulders tight, then picked up the folder and left it on the counter anyway, just in case she murmured. I didn't walk her to the door. Later that night, I found Ella asleep in my bed, curled into the blankets like a secret. I didn't move her. I just lay beside her and watched the moon through the blinds, quiet as snow. The next time the doorbell rang, it was my father. I hadn't seen him in person since Thanksgiving. He looked older than I remembered, thinner, the kind of tired that no sleep could cure. He held his hat in his hands like a schoolboy. Said my name once quiet. "Can I come in?" I didn't answer. I just stepped aside. He didn't sit. He paced a little, looked at the family photos on the hallway wall, Jake's science fair, Ella in her Halloween astronaut suit. "You've done well," he said. I waited. He sighed. "Your brother..." "He wasn't ready. We didn't see it." I let the silence hang. Let him taste it. He glanced at me. "Your mother wanted to come, but she's embarrassed." I offered not unkindly. He didn't deny it. "We never meant to shut you out," he said. "It just got complicated. Your choices made things harder." Ah, your choices. The familiar refrain. The decisions I made to protect myself now dressed up as burdens they never chose to carry. "I didn't come here to argue," he added quickly. "Just to ask. If there's anything at all you could do to help us hold things together." I looked at him. Really looked. This man had raised me, taught me to change tires, balance checkbooks, shake hands firmly, but not once had he taught me how to ask for help without cloaking it in pride. "You built a system," I said slowly, "where I didn't belong unless I was useful. And now you want me back, not because you miss me, because the system failed." He opened his mouth, closed it. I stepped closer. Not to comfort, but to be clear. "I was there," I said. "Every holiday, every bill, every meltdown. You just didn't see me." He didn't speak. "I was there," I repeated. "You just saw easier when I was gone." The silence that followed was different than all the others. He didn't try to fill it. When he finally left, he didn't take the folder Rachel left behind. He didn't say goodbye. Just nodded and closed the door behind him. I stood there for a while. Then I turned off the porch light. Winter came quiet that year. The holidays passed with fewer calls. No invitations, no forwarded group texts. The silence wasn't harsh, it was deliberate. I didn't decorate much. Just a few lights around the window and a small tree Jake and Ella picked out themselves. Plastic ornaments, paper stars they made at school. It was enough. One morning, just after New Year's, I opened the mailbox and found a letter. Handwritten. No return address. It was from my mother. 4 pages. Dense cursive. Not quite an apology. Not quite anything. Mostly memories, vague regrets, and one line that stood out. "We didn't mean to hurt you. We just didn't know where you fit anymore." I folded the letter back into its envelope and placed it in the drawer beside the scissors and spare batteries. I didn't throw it away. I just didn't read it again. A week later, Jake asked if we could finally change the hallway wall. "What do you mean?" I asked. He pointed at the old photos. "The ones from years ago, school plays, birthdays, a few of me with my siblings when we still thought growing up meant growing together. We could make it just Us, now, he said. So we did. We took every frame down, wiped the dust, and started over. Alyssa, Jake, Ella, park picnics, library awards, Halloween astronauts. One photo showed the three of us on the couch, arms tangled, laughing at something only we knew. That one I printed large. I placed it in the hallway centered. No caption, no extra names. Just us. A few days later, Rachel texted. The house sold. Dad and Mom moved in with Ryan for now. It's a mess, but maybe it's better this way. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to clarify. That night after the kids went to sleep, I made tea and sat by the window. The porch light was still off. I watched the street stay quiet. I watched nothing happen. And for the first time in years, I didn't brace for the next knock. I didn't explain myself. I didn't leave a forwarding address. If you've ever had to rebuild your story without telling anyone why, just leave a light off. We'll understand. There was a seat for everyone except me. I stood in the doorway of the dining room holding a small wrapped gift in both hands. The house smelled like cinnamon-baked ham and pine. Someone had taken time with the table candles lit, name cards in careful cursive crystal glasses catching the soft light. My name wasn't there. At the head of the table sat my older brother Colin, still broad-shouldered, still wearing that smirk like it was stitched to his face. He was slicing into the honey ham like he owned the moment. Maybe he thought he did. Lana was beside him. My cousin. She wore one of my mother's old scarves, silk pale green, the one Mom used to save for Christmas Eve services. Lana sipped from her wine glass like she belonged here, like she'd always belonged. I looked around again. Maybe I missed something. Maybe a chair had been pulled away to make room for the pies. But no, the table was set, full, complete, without me. I turned to my mother Joyce. She was arranging sweet potatoes in a dish with marshmallows avoiding my eyes. When I opened my mouth to speak, she glanced at the turkey like it had just asked her a question. I think... You forgot my seat, I said, keeping my voice low. Colin didn't even pause chewing. Without looking up, he said it flat clean like it cost him nothing. It's outside. With the dogs. There was a breathless silence. Lana let out a quiet snort. One of the second cousins shifted in his chair. A fork clicked against porcelain. But no one said a word. No one laughed. No one objected. I stood there, cheeks burning. I wasn't sure what stung more, that he said it, or that everyone else let it stay in the air like a prayer no one would claim. I could have turned. I could have said something loud, made a scene. But instead, I stepped forward, set the small box down in front of Colin's plate, then leaned in close enough that only he could hear "check under your plate." And I walked out. Didn't wait for anyone to stop me, didn't look back. Just stepped into the December night and let the cold tell me I was still alive. When I was little, Christmas was my favorite day in the whole world. Back then, the tree stood by the living room window, not some carefully curated photo op, but a slightly lopsided pine with mismatched ornaments we'd collected over the years. Colin and I would argue over whose turn it was to hang the glass reindeer, the one with the cracked antler. Dad would break up the fight by holding it himself and declaring this one's for peace. And peace doesn't pick sides. That was our dad. Russell Blake. He smelled like engine oil and cedar chips and always had a grease stain on his shirt, even at Christmas. But when he smiled, the whole room felt steady. He'd ruffle my hair and say, "You've got grit, kid. You're gonna outlast all of us." I didn't know what he meant then. I thought he was just being funny. Now, I think, maybe he saw something even I hadn't. Colin used to be different too. He and I once built a snow fort so high we couldn't see over it. I slipped on the ice trying to climb it and busted my lip, and he cried harder than I did, brought me inside yelling for Mom, wrapped me in a blanket and said, "You're not allowed to die. Ever." That version of him, the one who gave me the last piece of fudge and let me sit shotgun when we went to get firewood, I don't know where he went. I don't know when he left. And Mom, she used to sing while cooking. Her voice was soft, barely in tune, but I remember the way she'd hum Silent Night while peeling potatoes. Sometimes she'd twirl in her slipper's apron, flaring just a bit when she thought no one was looking. I looked. She used to make sure my favorite mug, white with faded holly leaves, was waiting on the table with hot cocoa and too many marshmallows. I didn't see it this year, didn't expect to, but I still noticed. What happened to that house? What happened to the people who lived in it? Was I the only one who remembered the good parts? Because somewhere along the way, the laughter turned sharp. The warmth cooled, and Colin started speaking for the family like it was his to interpret. My voice got smaller. My name showed up less. Until one day it stopped showing up at all, and still I kept showing up, hoping it was just grief, hoping it was just stress, hoping they'd see me. But hope can go blind if you feed it long enough. And I think mine did. It didn't happen all at once. There wasn't a fight or a slammed door or some dramatic falling out. No one yelled at me to leave. No one said you're not family anymore. They just stopped including me. At first it was subtle. I'd call to check in on Dad. This was back when his memory started slipping, when he'd forget the names of tools or call me that girl on the phone. And Colin would answer upbeat as ever, "Dad's resting right now. I'll let him know you called." A few days later, I'd try again. "He's in a fog today. Not the best time." Eventually, I stopped hearing Dad's voice altogether. Just updates filtered through Colin, always wrapped in concern. Always protecting someone. Mom started deferring too. I'd ask how she was holding up, and she'd say things like, "Colin's been such a help. He really knows how to handle things. It's just easier when things go through him." At first, I didn't push. I told myself they were tired, that maybe I was being sensitive. I was living in Austin then, working long hours at a marketing firm. I sent money home every month, paid part of the roof repair without being asked, booked flights back for every major holiday. Still, I started noticing things. One Christmas, my old stocking was missing from the fireplace mantel. I found it later stuffed in the back of the hallway closet. The framed photo of me and Dad, taken on the day he gave me his old toolbox, vanished from the wall. In its place was a new photo, Colin and Lana at the garden center, holding a flat of mums like they'd just saved the family homestead. I told myself it didn't mean anything. Then, one Sunday, I logged onto social media and saw pictures from what they called an impromptu family dinner. All of them. Around the same table I used to help set, laughing, toes touching under the chairs I once sanded down with Dad. No one had called me. No one had even thought to mention it. When I asked Mom about it, she said it was last minute. "You live so far. We figured you wouldn't want the hassle." She didn't hear the way her words landed, or maybe she did and chose to let them land anyway. From then on, the pattern was clear. Decisions were made without me. About Dad's treatment, about the house, about finances. Colin explained everything after the fact, always with a tone that made it sound like he was doing me a favor. "Didn't want to bother you while you're busy. It's just easier this way." Easier. For whom I wasn't angry. Not yet. Just confused. Off balance. Like someone had slowly been turning the volume down on my voice until I couldn't hear it myself. They never told me to go. They just stopped saving me a seat. The first time I realized Lana had moved in, she answered the phone from my mother's kitchen. I could hear the ceramic clink of the spoon against Mom's favorite mug, the one with the cardinals on it. Lana laughed at something in the background, Colin probably, and said, "Hold on, your mom's elbow deep in pie dough." Your mom. That word sat heavy in my chest for days. I asked Joyce about it a week later, careful not to sound accusatory. "Is Lana staying with you now, just helping out? She's been a godsend. You know how things have been." A godsend. This was the same Lana who 3 years earlier had borrowed Mom's sapphire earrings and claimed she thought they were hers, who lied about a missing checkbook at Thanksgiving, who once cried on the porch and said, "I don't know why everyone thinks I'm the bad one." And now here she was, setting the table I used to set, wearing the scarves Mom used to wrap around her shoulders on snowy mornings, leaving handwritten notes on the fridge, chickens in the oven. Took Mom to PT. At first, I told myself it was practical. They needed someone around. And I hadn't been. Not physically, anyway. But slowly, Lana stopped being a helper and became the one who knows where everything is. When I called to ask how Dad's doctor visit went, Lana was the one who answered. When I sent flowers for Mom's birthday, Lana texted me a thank you with a photo of Mom holding the bouquet standing beside her. The caption read, "She loved them, great day, I wasn't in the picture." I wasn't in any picture anymore. I started asking questions. Colin's answers were vague. "She's just around to help with errands. It's not like she's taking over." But when I visited for Dad's memorial, Lana greeted guests at the door. She wore a black dress, simple and neat, the same one I'd worn to my uncle's funeral years ago. I recognized the hemline the way it fell just above the knee. I had left it in the closet upstairs. It wasn't hers. She stood by the coffee table pouring cider, telling stories about Dad like she'd known him better than I had. People nodded. They smiled. They believed her. And I just stood there, coat still on hands, cold, watching my place disappear piece by piece. Later that evening, I tried to bring it up to Mom. I didn't want to accuse. I just needed to know where I stood. "She's just trying to help Marin. You've always been too sensitive about things." That's when I realized it. It wasn't that they forgot me. It was that they'd found someone easier to replace me with. 2 months before Christmas, I drove up to the house without calling ahead. I wasn't planning to go inside. I thought maybe I'd just sit in the driveway, look at the old porch swing, and remind myself of who I used to be when this place still felt like mine. But when I pulled up, the driveway was empty. No sign of Colin's truck. No Lana in the window, no motion in the kitchen. I stepped out anyway. My key still worked. The house was quieter than I remembered. No music, no TV. Just the hum of the heater and the faint creak of floorboards that still spoke when no one else would. I found myself drifting toward Dad's study. It was the only room no one had rearranged. Everything else in the house felt slightly off, like it had been staged to look familiar, but something was missing behind the eyes. But his study was untouched. The old recliner still sagged in the middle. His toolbox sat beneath the bookshelf, paint-chipped and rusted. A clock ticked softly by the window, the one with the dusty face and brass hands that always ran 10 minutes slow. And then I saw it. The cabinet in the corner. Dark wood brass handle. I'd seen him open it a dozen times growing up, but I never paid attention to what went inside. I knelt down and pulled. It stuck at first, then gave way. Inside a small metal safe. My breath caught. I remembered something suddenly. A long time ago, maybe high school, he'd tucked a tiny key inside his favorite book. Said it was for just in case. I reached up, scanned the shelves. Travels with Charlie by Steinbeck. Worn spine, cracked leather. The key was still there. When the safe clicked open, I didn't know what I expected. Maybe old receipts, maybe nothing. But there it was. An envelope. Thick, cream paper. My name on the front written in his hand. I sat down on the floor, knees to my chest, and opened it. Inside, a notarized will, dated 2 weeks before he died. Every asset, this house, the savings, the land in Monument Valley, was left to me. Colin's name wasn't mentioned once. Neither was Lana's. And behind the will, a note, folded, yellowed slightly at the edges. It said, "Marin, I see it now. I didn't before, and I'm sorry. You never asked for anything. You just stayed. You protected me when no one else did. This house is yours. You've earned it. Love, Dad." I didn't cry at the funeral. I cried on that floor. Not for the house, but because in the end, someone saw me. I didn't tell anyone I was coming. I dressed in dark jeans and a navy coat, nothing dramatic, nothing that screamed, "Look at me." I brought a single box wrapped in plain brown paper, tied with twine. It was Christmas Eve. The Blake house still had the same string of colored lights blinking unevenly. The wreath on the door was slightly crooked. Someone had replaced the welcome mat. It used to say, "Home is where Dad is." Now it read, "Joyful season." I knocked once, then let myself in. No one heard me at first. The dining room was already full. Colin at the head of the table, Lana to his right, her hand resting lightly on his arm. Mom sat across, smiling in that soft, distant way that used to be reserved for guests. My seat wasn't there. Again. This time I didn't flinch. I stepped forward, placed the box in the center of the table, and looked directly at Colin. He blinked. "Marin, what are you—" I didn't give him the satisfaction of finishing the question. "Check under your plate," I said, voice low, but firm. He glanced down, lifted the charger, and found a single key. It was old brass, worn smooth with use. Dad's safe key. Colin's eyes flicked up to mine. Confusion first. Then a flicker of something else, nervousness. No, not yet. He didn't know enough to be afraid. Joyce rose halfway, her smile faltering. "Marin, this isn't— I'm not staying," I said. "Just wanted to drop that off." Lana reached for the box. "Is it a gift?" I looked at her for the first time all evening. Looked through her, really. In a way. She flushed, hand retreating. I turned toward the door. No one followed. No one asked me to stay. Not really. Colin was already lifting the box's lid. Joyce said, "Wait, what is this?" I was halfway down the front steps when I heard chairs scrape, voices rise. I didn't stop. The night was sharp air cold against my throat. I walked back to my car. Sat for a moment in the driver's seat. Let the silence settle. Because what they found in that box wasn't wrapped in malice. It was wrapped in truth. The copy of Dad's will. The letter. A small photograph, me and him, shoulder to shoulder from the summer I helped him rebuild the fence. Nothing dramatic. Just enough. Let them read it in their own voices. In their own time. Let them sit at that table full, but with one chair always conspicuously empty. Would they still pretend I was just too sensitive? That I imagined it all? And if so, who left that key? They started calling the next morning. First, it was Joyce. Just a voicemail. "Hi, sweetie. We read what you left. It caught us off guard, that's all. We should talk. I think we all just need to breathe and maybe come together. As a family. No apology. Just caught off guard." Then Colin sent a text. "Can we meet?" There's a lot to discuss. I think we all misunderstood each other. Not a word about the will. Or the letter. Then Lana messaged me. Just a sad face emoji. Nothing else. For a week, I let the messages pile up. They tried new angles, confusion, nostalgia, even guilt. "Your dad wouldn't want this rift, Marin. We're still your family. Let's not let bitterness ruin the holidays." But bitterness hadn't ruined anything. Erasure had. And the thing is, I wasn't angry anymore. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to prove a point. I just didn't want to go back. I didn't block their numbers. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I just stopped responding. I think that unsettled them more than anything else. One afternoon, Colin tried showing up at my office unannounced. My assistant sent him away. I never told her to. She just said afterward he didn't look like someone you'd want to see. She was right. A few days later, Mom called again. This time I picked up. Her voice was quiet, fragile. "Marin, I think we made mistakes, but this family, it's still yours too." I waited a beat, then said I was always there. You just lived easier when I wasn't. She didn't respond, not because she disagreed, but because there was nothing left to say. 3 weeks after Christmas, I mailed one last envelope. No return address. Inside, the original photo of Dad and me. The one from the fence rebuild. The one that had been quietly taken down from the hallway wall years ago. I didn't include a note. I didn't need to. A week later, a neighbor sent me a picture. I hadn't asked for it, she just thought I'd want to know. The photo had been rehung. Not inside the Blake house. Not over the fireplace or beside the dining table. It was tacked up in the old shed behind the garden Dad's tool shed. The one place no one else ever went. There it was slightly crooked, hanging above the workbench. Just a girl and her father standing side by side. Smiling like the world made sense. No caption, no explanation. I stared at the image for a long time, then closed my phone. That house. It may belong to me on paper, but the real inheritance wasn't brick or timber. It was this knowing. I never needed them to admit what they did, because the truth already exists, and it doesn't go away when ignored. I still live in Austin. Still drink from that holly mug I took back quietly after the memorial. It chips a little more each winter. I let it. Sometimes people ask if I ever reconciled with my family. I tell them I was always part of the story. They just wrote around me. And now they don't get to write me out. I never asked to be seen. I just wanted to exist. If you've ever been erased but chose to remain true, just leave a single heart icon.